بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وعملا وهدى وتقى ورشادا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم فقهنا في الدين وعلمنا التأويل. اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من علم لا ينفع، من قلب لا يخشع، من نفس لا تشبع، من دعوة لا يستجاب لها. نعوذ بك اللهم من هؤلاء الأربع. أما بعد، فحياكم الله جميعا في الدرس الثاني في شرح تهذيب بناء الأفعال. A quick recap of what we had learned in the previous dars, ya ikhwan and ya akhawat. We had introduced ourselves to the science of Sarf, and we had generally spoken about the different ulum of Arabiya. We said that there are 12 sciences that serve the Arabic language, out of which the most important are Nahu, Sarf, Al-Ma'ani, which is a branch of Balagha, and Al-Lugha, vocabulary, or yani, just the knowledge of the Mufradat. From these four, alhamdulillah, we have learned yani, a portion of Nahu, and which is the science that deals with how the words end and how they change and alter with yani, according to the change in their i'rab, and how the sentence is structured. Then we now move on to the science of Sarf that deals with how the words are structured. This science of Sarf studies the structure of the word, how the words are formed. The science of Sarf deals with al-asma and al-af'al. And as for the huruf, which is the third type of kalima, Sarf does not study how the huruf behave, generally speaking. So the science of Sarf generally studies the structure of the asma that are mu'rab, the asma that are mu'rab, and the af'al that are mutasarrif. Asma that are mu'rab and af'al that are mutasarrif. What does it mean that it studies asma that are mu'rab? It doesn't study dhamir, for example. Yani how the dhamir changes and what's the structure of the dhamir is not a subject of a sarf, because dhamir takes up a totally new shape. As for the af'al, for example, or some other asma, they are yani they retain the same three-letter root. They have some root which they retain, and then they add and subtract things, or they just change the harakat to give new meanings. So this is called tasarruf. This is called tasarruf, that the changes that occur within the same entity. But the dhamair, they just take up a new word. For example, now fa'altu, if you're saying we, so you're going to say fa'alna, we did. So this is a whole new dhamir. Huwa becomes hiya, and there is no root that is being retained. Yes, it can be said that the ha is common amongst all of the pronouns of the third person, but generally speaking, Sarf does not study those asma. Rather, Sarf studies the asma that are mu'rab. And in particular, the things that we study with regards to asma are how is the dual form derived, which is the muthanna. How is the jam'a formed? The jam'a, be it jam'a taksir or jam'a salim, mudhakkar salim or mu'annath salim. We study how the tasghir, the diminutive form of a noun, is made, and we study how the nasab, how a noun can be attributed to something, or how can someone be attributed to a particular noun. So these are the different things that we study in the tasrif of asma, which we are not going to study in this book. What we are going to study in this book is the tasrif of af'al, tasrif, the changes that occur in the structure of the word to give new meanings, the tasrif that occurs in the af'al. With regards to the af'al, before we enter into the book, we will be doing or learning a few muqaddimat, as we mentioned previously. So of those muqaddimat, the first one was al-mizan al-sarfi. Al-mizan al-sarfi. Mizan al-sarfi is a way to express the pattern of a particular word. So that you could express where the root letters are positioned and where the additional letters are positioned. So for example, we have here the word tahdheeb, مثلا. We have the word here tahdheeb. Now, in order to express it in or using the mizan al-sarfi, the sarfi scale, we are supposed to, or someone wants to explain to you the pattern of tahdheeb, of the word tahdheeb. Now, you are not able to understand where the root letters are positioned and where the additional letters are, or what group of patterns that does it belong to. So in order to explain it to you, he says, tahdheeb is upon the wazn of, and who can tell me in al-mizan al-sarfi what will be the wazn of tahdheeb? Who can replace the root letters with fa, ain, and lam? Hi,
تفعيل.
تفعيل. أحسنتم. تفعيل. So Sheikh Muhammad, what did he do? He looked at the word tahdheeb, and he saw that because of his previous knowledge of this word tahdheeb, or this pattern that is taf'il, he recognized instantly that the root letters are ha and zal and ba. So what did he do? He replaced the ha with a fa. So he said taf, and he's replaced the zal with an ain, sataf'i. The ya, he let it go, and he replaced the ba with the lam. So this is how he expressed tahdheeb in al-mizan al-sarfi. So it says that tahdheeb is upon the wazn of taf'il. Tahdheeb is upon the wazn of taf'il. وهكذا. طيب. With regards to bina, مثلا. Now we have the word here bina. Bina. What do you think is the wazn of bina? Where are the root letters? Replace the root letters with a fa, ain, and lam. Retain the additional letters as they are, as well as the harakat. The word bina. What do you think is the wazn of bina in al-mizan al-sarfi?
فعال.
فعال. أحسنت. ممتاز. فعال. What did he do? He just replaced the ba with the fa, the noon with the ain, and he recognized that the alif is an additional letter, does not belong to the root. Rather, what belongs to the root is the hamza, so he replaced it with the lam. So he said, the brother Afaq said, فعال. بناء. فعال. طيب. طبعا أفعال. أفعال is like very clear where the root letters are. fa, ain, and lam. طيب. Let me give you some other examples of before we move on. مثلا عندك كلمة متكلم. متكلم. لحظة. نعم. متكلم. Now متكلم, what is the wazn of متكلم? متكلم means the one who speaks. Now everyone knows يعني speaking or يعني the root words of the root letters that denote this meaning are kaf, lam, and mim. Everyone knows kalam, mutakallim, takallum, yukallim, taklim, وكلم الله موسى تكليما. So everyone knows that the root letters that denote this meaning are kaf, lam, and mim. So this one is going to be easy for others as well to express in al-mizan al-sarfi. So what is the wazn of mutakallim in al-mizan al-sarfi? متفاعل. ممتاز. The sister says متفاعل. Now what did the sister do? She just replaced the kaf, lam, and mim with the fa, ain, and lam. متفاعل. This is one way to express the wazn of متكلم. وهكذا. طيب. Then we started, we said that we're going to study 5 classifications of fi'l before we enter the book, and we're going to study some qawaid related to sarf, and some and the derivatives, the mushtaqat, the things, the different nouns that are derived from the fi'l, the different nouns that are derived from the fi'l. Now, with regards to the 5 taqsimat, or the 5 classifications, the first one was, which we are going to start with, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, that a fi'l is classified into fi'l madi, mudari, and amr. This is easy. We have done this once in Nahu. We are going to just go through it again and just discuss some of the alamat of fi'l madi, mudari, and amr. The second classification is the classification of fi'l into fi'l مبني للمعلوم active case وفعل مبني للمجهول which is the passive case in which the doer, the fa'il is not mentioned, rather the مفعول به or the any of the مفعول is put in place of the fa'il and made مرفوع. The third classification is going to be فعل صحيح وفعل معتل. صحيح, that does not have any vowel letters, does not have alif, waw, or ya, and mu'tal, that does have an alif or waw or ya. And then these sahih and mu'tal are further divided into like 4 types each, or 3 and 4 respectively. So sahih, the verbs that do not have any vowel letters in their root letters, do not contain alif, waw, or ya. These are divided into 3 types. Why are we dividing these into different types? Because these are the different types that matter to us in the science of Sarf, because there are changes or there are alterations that occur in these particular types in a way different to the normal fi'l. So that's why we have to make a separate type for each of these af'al. So we have we will inshallah discuss this later on, that in Sahih we have Salim, Mahmuz, and Muda'af, and in Mu'tal we have Mithal, and Ajwaf, and Naqis, and Lafif, Maqrun, and Mafruq. And then inshallah we will move on to the fourth classification of the Af'al, which will be, is it the fourth or is it going to be the third one? I think it's going to be the fourth one now. Which is going to be the Mujarrad and Mazid, right? Or what was it? SubhanAllah, I forgot. It's going to be Allah Musta'an. Yes, Sahih Lazim al-Muta'addi. I forgot Lazim al-Muta'addi. It's going to say the third one is going to be Lazim al-Muta'addi. Lazim is transitive. Sorry, Lazim is intransitive and Muta'addi is transitive. Muta'addi is the one that has a maf'ul bihi and it directly applies the verb on the maf'ul bihi. It does not need the help of a harf jar. And lazim is the intransitive one, yani the verb that does not have a maf'ul bihi, or it does have some sort of an object, but it has to take help of a preposition of a harf jar in order to apply the verb on that object. And finally, we will be discussing bi'idhnillahi ta'ala fi'lun mujarradun and mazid. Mujarrad means that has no additional letters to it, and mazid is the one in which there are additional letters. طيب نبدأ الآن يا إخوان يا أخوات with الفعل. The first classification, that is فعل انقسام الفعل إلى الماضي والمضارع والأمر. The فعل يا إخوان is divided into ماضي مضارع and أمر. طيب, first question, what is the difference between فعل and اسم? يعني technically, I know everyone knows what it is, what's an ism, what's a fi'l, but what do they mention in the books? Like the fi'l also denotes something, the verb also denotes something, but there is one difference between the two. The time. The sister says the time. That's the correct answer. The fi'l denotes the time of occurrence as well. An ism, a noun, can denote an occurrence, but it does not tell us the time of that occurrence, right? But a fi'l actually tells you the time of that occurrence as well. So for example, if I say ضربي زيدا, يعني my hitting of Zaid was very severe, يعني my beating of Zaid was severe. ضربي زيدا كان شديدا مثلا, if I say this. Now this does not denote when did I hit him, all right, or until I said كان شديدا, it was severe. But when I say ضربت زيدا, then it means I hit him in the past. If I say أضرب زيدا, I'm doing it in the حال, or I'm going to do it in the future. So the fi'l is يعني one of the things that distinguishes the fi'l from the ism is that the fi'l denotes the time as well. طيب, تقرأ يا أحمد؟
أيوة نعم شيخ.
يلا بسم الله.
بسم الله، الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين. أما بعد، انقسام الفعل إلى الماضي والمضارع والأمر. الفعل ما يدل على حدث مع الدلالة على زمنه، وهو 3 أقسام، لكل قسم ما يعرف به من العلامات.
So the fi'l is divided in, this is the first classification of fi'l. ماضي مضارع أمر. طيب ولكل قسم ما يعرف به من العلامات. Every type of these أفعال has a set of signs through which we could identify which type of a فعل it is. نعم. الفعل الماضي.
الفعل الماضي وهو نحو كتب وشرب، ويعرف بإمكان اتصال تاء الفاعل بآخره كشربت الماء، وكذا بإمكان اتصال تاء التأنيث بآخره ككتبت أمي إلي.
أحسنت. Now here يا إخوان you could see that يعني first of all we did not really يعني define the فعل الماضي, rather we preferred mentioning the examples. طيب كتب شرب فعل ماضي past tense simply put. يعرف بإمكان اتصال تاء الفاعل بآخره. One of the signs that are exclusive to فعل ماضي is the fact that it can have a تاء الفاعل at its end. تاء الفاعل. What is a تاء الفاعل? If you remember the table in the book in our نحو book in which we mentioned the different صيغ of the أفعال with their ضمائر, the تاء الفاعل is the one that is mentioned with the متكلم فعلت or with the مخاطب فعلت or فعلتي. These or فعلتم or فعلتما or فعلتن. In all of these يا إخوان there is a ta, right? This is called تاء الفاعل. In all of these you get a ta. So you have فعلت لحظة فعلت فعلتي, and then you have فعلتما, and then you have فعلتم and فعلتن. In all of these the ta is called the ta'ul fa'il. This denotes the subject, the doer of the fi'al. فعلت فعلت فعلتي فعلتما فعلتم فعلتن. This ta'ul fa'il is only found with the ماضي, and ta'ul fa'il is never, you would never find it at the end of a mudari', nor would you find it at the end of a fi'l amr. So whenever you find a ta at the end of the fi'l, then this means that it is a fi'l madi. This is one of the signs of fi'l madi, that you would find a ta'ul fa'il at the end of it. As well as that you can find the ta'ul fa'il at the end of it. It's not necessary that always in all the siyagh of the fi'l madi you would find a ta. That's why we said يعرف بإمكان اتصالي. يعني it is possible that the ta would be attached to the end of the fi'l. Likewise يا إخوان and يا أخوات, one of the علامات of a fi'l madi is that you can attach to it تاء التأنيث. What is تاء التأنيث? تاء التأنيث is the ta that is found at the end of a fi'l to denote that the doer of the fi'l, the fa'il of the fi'l, is a feminine, is someone who is feminine. So فعلت ذهبت ركبت. If you can attach a تاء التأنيث at the end of a fi'l, that means that fi'l is fi'l madi. Now let's take some examples. For example, you have كتب here. Okay. Now كتب, can we say كتبت? Is it correct to say كتبت?
Yes.
That means this is fi'l madi. It is correct. Is it correct to say كتبت? Does it feel nice? Does it feel right to say كتبت?
Yes.
That means this is fi'l madi. But if you look at أكتب, can you say أكتبت? Hi شباب. أكتبت. Does it feel? Do you find it yourselves familiar with the word أكتبت?
No.
No. That means this is يعني not a fi'l madi. This must be something else. Likewise, have you ever heard the word أكتبت? And putting a ta'anith at the end? No. That means this is not a fi'l madi. It must be a fi'l mudari' or something else. It must be something other than a fi'l madi. So this is how we use the alamat of fi'l madi. You put it at the end of a verb and have a look and check. If it sounds, if you any familiar, then it is perhaps fi'l madi. If it doesn't, then it must be something else. طيب. Also, one of the, this I'm simplifying it for you guys, even though you have already known what is madi, mudari, and amr, but because there are a few brothers who are relatively new, who didn't attend the Nahu class, so that's why I need to just explain this again. Okay, well, one of the other signs is that the fi'l madi would never have harf al-mudara'a. Who can remind me what is harf al-mudara'a?
أنيت همزة نون ياء
همزة نون ياء تاء. What do these حروف المضارع, what do these what is the job of these حروف المضارع, Sheikh? What is the job of these حروف المضارعة, أحرف المضارعة?
It comes into فعل مضارع.
It comes at the start, at the beginning of a فعل مضارع.
It's the sign. No.
ممتاز. يعني it comes at the beginning of a فعل مضارع, and it denotes the gender at times, or the يعني who the doer of the فعل is. Is it the first person, or is it the second person, or is it the third person? Is it a female, or is it a male, etc. So it has يعني it serves as a sign for a number of things, but it is a property that is exclusive to فعل مضارع. It's a property that is exclusive to فعل مضارع, and you would never find it along with a فعل ماضي. So if you find a hamza or a ta, right, hamza مثلا أكتب, or a ta تكتب, or you find a nun نكتب, or you find a ya يكتب at the beginning of the فعل ألف نون يا تا, then this cannot be a فعل ماضي. This cannot be a فعل ماضي. These are things that will help you inshallah. Else يعني the primary way of identifying فعل ماضي المضارع is by learning their different صيغ, and then finally يعني eventually you will be able to identify. You wouldn't have to يعني depend on these علامات of تاء الفاعل and تاء التانيث. You would be able to identify it just by looking at the context of the text بإذن الله تعالى. طيب coming to فعل مضارع again. يلا أحمد تقرأ فعل مضارع.
الفعل المضارع وهو نحو أكتب تكتب يكتب، وأشرب تشرب يشرب، ويدل على زمن الحال أو المستقبل لا الماضي، ويعرف باتصال أوله
sorry for not forgetting to put the حركات. ويعرف باتصال أوله
بأحد أحرف المضارع.
نعم بأحد أحرف المضارعة. نعم. So فعل مضارع is the one that denotes the time of the فعل being in حال, present tense or future tense, present or future tense. يدل على زمن الحال أو المستقبل لا الماضي, does not denote the فعل occurring in the past. ويعرف باتصال أوله بأحد أحرف المضارعة. How do you identify فعل مضارع? It must have at its beginning one of the أحرف of مضارعة, which are همزة, نون, يا, or تا. One of these four حروف must be present at the beginning of the فعل مضارع, which is the present tense. طيب فعل الأمر يلا.
فعل الأمر وهو نحو اكتب واشرب ودلالته على طلب الفعل في المستقبل.
طيب.
ويعرف بالدلالة على الطلب ومشابهته للمضارع في الوزن إلا أنه لا يوجد في أوله حرف المضارع.
طيب فعل الأمر وهو نحو اكتب أو اشرب. This is called in English imperative. ودلالته على طلب الفعل في المستقبل. What does this denote? It denotes that the person who's using the فعل أمر is commanding the addressee, or he's requesting the addressee to to do some فعل in the future. So for example, if you say اكتب, it means like write. So he is asking the addressee to write in the future. Likewise, طيب ويعرف بالدلالة على الطلب. How do you identify a فعل أمر? First of all, you must know the دلالة. The دلالة means the meaning that it gives, or what it denotes. If you know that, خلاص, then you can identify فعل أمر. So the first thing is the meaning. So inshallah, with lots of practice بإذن الله تعالى, you will be easily able to right away identify the فعل أمر. ومشابهته للمضارع في الوزن. One of the other signs of فعل أمر is that it resembles the مضارع in its وزن. So for example, if you have يا إخوان in مضارع you have يكتب, right? So the pattern of فعل أمر would be similar, that is اكتب. طيب. So it's similar to the مضارع in its wazn, whereas the ماضي is كتب. طيب ماضي is كتب. This is different to اكتب. يكتب and اكتب is similar in its in the series of حركات that it has, in the pattern of حركات that it contains. طيب إلا أنه لا يوجد في أوله حرف المضارعة, except for the fact that it does not contain at its beginning حرف المضارعة. It does not have a ya or a noon or a ta or a hamza. طيب. Now, the second question is, okay, if it does not contain a حرف المضارع, etc., how to form a فعل أمر, how to derive a فعل أمر. طيب, فعل أمر ويصاغ فعل الأمر من المضارع بحذف حرف المضارعة. How do you form a فعل أمر from a مضارع? By removing the حرف المضارعة. So what are you left with? You are left with a kaf, ta ضمة, and a ba ضمة. ووضع علامة الجزم في آخره, and by putting the علامة of جزم, we all know the علامة of جزم, or we know جزم, right? It's one of the states in which a فعل مضارع can be, and the علامة of جزم, the general or the default or the standard علامة of جزم is ضمة, فتحة, كسرة, or سكون. سكون. طيب. So why didn't we just say سكون? Why didn't we just say بوضع السكون في آخره instead of saying وضع علامة الجزم? We could have just said سكون. Why didn't we just say سكون? Because sometimes the فعل does not have the سكون as the علامة of its جزم. Because sometimes the فعل does not have the سكون as its علامة of جزم, like it is in the فعل that is معتل الآخر, or the فعل that is من الأفعال الخمسة. So if the فعل is, let's say, from the أفعال الخمسة, which is يفعلون مثلا, طيب, or let's just take something else, يجلسون. طيب. In يجلسون, we are supposed to follow the same steps. What are the steps to derive a فعل أمر? remove the حرف المضارعة, we removed it. ووضع علامة الجزم في آخره. Now, what is the علامة of جزم here? What is the علامة of جزم? حذف النون. أحسنتم. حذف النون. This is how you will form the فعل أمر for يجلسون. Because now the علامة of جزم was حذف النون. So if it had been written سكون, then it wouldn't have been very precise. Rather, just saying the علامة, putting the علامة of جزم at its end, this is more precise. طيب. اجلسوا. طيب. Now the word starts, this verb starts with a سكون. So how will you deal, or how will you get rid of this problem? يعني, how will you solve this problem? يعني, because you cannot pronounce a word that starts with a سكون. So in order to solve this problem or get rid of this problem, you need to come up with a solution. What is that solution, يا إخوان?
add همزة الوصل.
أحسنتم شيخ. نضع همزة الوصل. We put a همزة الوصل at its beginning. طيب. Now, همزة الوصل enables us to pronounce the word, even though it's starting with a sukun, but because of hamzat al-wasl, now we have an additional letter at its beginning which has a haraka. But the question is, what haraka should the hamzat al-wasl have? What is the ضابط and the principle with regards to the haraka of the hamzat al-wasl?
The third letter.
The third letter, okay, or just the second letter after the hamzat al-wasl. The second letter after hamzat al-wasl. You look at the haraka of the second letter after hamzat al-wasl. If it is, yalla, if it is what?
Kasra.
Then?
You put kasra.
If it is fatha, then?
Put kasra.
Still put kasra, ahsant. And if it is dhamma, you put?
ضمة.
احسنت ممتاز. طيب اذا تحتاج يعني you need to memorize three examples to يعني master this principle. One example with a dhamma and one example with the fatha and one with the kasra. So just remember these three examples. ادخل, افتح, Allah understand, افتح, and انزل. If you remember these three examples, خلاص, you have mastered this قاعدة, that is what حركة should the Hamzat al-Wasl have. With a dhamma, just memorize these words the way they are being pronounced, the way they are being said. ادخل, افتح, انزل. Now this would يعني remind you what حركة you're supposed to put on the Hamzat al-Wasl whenever a word starts with the Hamzat al-Wasl. طيب. So for example, in the Quran we have something that is written like this. I'm not reading it because I don't want to tell what haraka does it have. The ba has a kasra, by the way, because I think it's not visible right now. طيب, so how are we going to read these two words? For غير حفاظ, يعني those who haven't memorized the Quran. Hi, يا إخوان. How are we supposed to read this word here? With a kasra. أحسنتم. اهبطوا مصرا. Not with a أهبطوا. طيب, اهبطوا مصرا. طيب. If we have يا إخوان مثلا okay. In Surah Yasin we have so we have نعم. طيب كيف نقرأ هذا؟ with a kasra or with a fatha or with a dhamma? Still with a kasra. اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون. طيب. طيب, what else do we have? طيب, وضرب الله مثلا كلمة لا ذاك ايش؟ ضرب الله مثلا كلمة what is that آية in سورة إبراهيم؟ نعم ذاك ومثل كلمة خبيثة كشجرة خبيثة. Now you read this ayah like this. كشجرة خبيثة اجتثت. كشجرة خبيثة اجتثت. Now we don't need the Hamzat al-Wasl here because we have a haraka on the ta. Now let's say you are stopping يعني تقف على خبيثة اجتثت, and now you want to restart from this word that is which has been mentioned after خبيثة اجتثت. طيب. Now if you want to start from this word, how are you going to read this word? Are you going to read it with a dhamma or with a fatha? This time with a dhamma. So you're going to read it as اجتثت من فوق الأرض. Now notice how when we joined it, the haraka that the خبيثة اجتثت, this tanween had was a kasra, right? We added an extra kasra to the tanween. Tanween is, it always has a sukun. Tanween actually means a noon sound with a second noon sound. But here we are forced to give it a haraka, so we give it a kasra. It doesn't mean that if we give a khabithatin, the tanween khabithatin a kasra, that we would also give it a kasra to the alif. So we wouldn't say, if we are starting from ujtuthat, we wouldn't say ijtuthat la. Rather, if you stop at ijtuthat, you will say ujtuthat min fawq al-ardi ما لها من قرار. طيب, ممتاز جدا. هذا هو. طيب, but there are some exceptions to Hamzat al-Wasl. For example, now we have the asma mawsula. In an asma al-mawsula, you don't say illadhi, even though this is an exception. Now you wouldn't say in illadhi. Why? Because the third haraka has a fatha, or the third letter or the second letter after the Hamzat al-Wasl has a fatha. La. This is fixed. خلاص. Asma mawsula always. Alladhi, alladhina, allati, allati, وهكذا. Likewise, generally speaking, has a Hamzat al-Wasl. like al that comes with any word, al-kitab, al-qalam, al-sarir, etc. In this case as well, you are not going to be looking at the second letter after the hamzat al-wasl. Rather, whenever there is an al of ta'rif, there is always a fatha on the hamzat al-wasl. Likewise, we have a few other exceptions that I cannot recall right now. لكن هذا يعني this is the summary of همزة الوصل. طيب, if I have a word like يعد, how will I derive the فعل أمر from يعد? يعد means to promise someone something. What is the فعل أمر from يعد?
عيد.
عد. طيب, the Sheikh, what did he do? He removed the ya. He was left with the عيد, and he put the alam of jazm at the end. What he was left with was عد. طيب, why did you not put a hamzat al-wasl, Sheikh? Why not يعد?
Because the first letter can be pronounced with the kasra.
أحسنتم. There is no need for hamzat al-wasl because the first letter has a haraka. It does not have a sukun. ممتاز جدا. And final question is like verbs like, for example, you have يفي. How to make a فعل أمر out of يفي? This is a فعل مضارع. What is the فعل أمر out of يفي? في. With the kasra or with the
Kasra.
with the kasra. أحسنتم. And why? Because the alam of jazm in the فعل معتل الآخر is حذف حرف العلة. The حرف العلة, the whole of it is removed because the ya already has a sukun, so this cannot be the alam of jazm. The alam of jazm is حذف حرف العلة. So you have to apply the alam of jazm, remove the حرف المضارعة, مضارعة, and you are left with a fa with a kasra. ممتاز جدا. الله يبارك فيكم. طيب, next بإذن الله تعالى, the next classification after Isha prayer. I'll just have to go for Isha prayer. I'll be back بإذن الله تعالى within 10 to 15 minutes inshallah, and we'll complete the dars then بإذن الله تعالى. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد, فحياكم الله مرة أخرى. نبدأ الآن في التقسيم الثالث. لحظة. التقسيم الثاني. Let's start with the second classification of فعل, and that is the classification of فعل أو انقسام الفعل إلى المبني للمعلوم والمبني للمجهول. المبني للمعلوم والمبني للمجهول. طبعا, why did we discuss these two classifications first before the other classifications? That is because we have already studied these once in Nahu, and the other three we haven't yet studied them in a proper manner, so that is why. So first let's get done with these, and then inshallah we can move on to the others بإذن الله تعالى. طيب, انقسام الفعل إلى المبني للمعلوم والمبني للمجهول. Active, simply put, active case and passive case, or active voice and passive voice. مثلا زيد opened the door was opened مثلا. طيب, زيد hit عمر was hit. This is active and passive. طيب, مبني للمعلوم is the active case or active voice, and مبني للمجهول is the passive case or passive voice. In مبني للمعلوم, the فاعل, the doer of the فعل is mentioned. In المبني للمجهول, the doer of the فعل is not mentioned. طيب, يلا أحمد تقرأ.
طيب, بسم الله. الفعل من حيث ذكر فاعله قسمان.
طيب,
أولا مبني للمعلوم وهو الذي يذكر فاعله نحو ضرب زيد عمرا وكتب محمد رسالة.
طيب, مبني للمعلوم وهو الذي يذكر فاعله. This is the one whose doer, whose فاعل is mentioned. Whose فاعل is mentioned. طيب, look at the أمثلة that we have here. ضرب زيد عمرا and كتب محمد رسالة. ضرب زيد عمرا, where is the فاعل? Is it mentioned, and where is it if it is mentioned?
زيد.
زيد. Okay, طيب what made you choose زيد as the فاعل؟
الدول.
لا صحيح. لا أقصد يعني what حركة or ضمتين. the ضمة on زيد makes you يعني it tells you that it's مرفوع, and because the فاعل is always مرفوع, so you say that زيد is the فاعل. طيب كتب محمد رسالة, who is the فاعل؟ محمد, because he is مرفوع and the فاعل is always مرفوع. What tells us that Muhammad is مرفوع here? The ضمة tells us that Muhammad is in مرفوع state. طيب, now the فاعل is mentioned. However, in المبني المجهول, let's see what happens in المبني المجهول. نعم. اقرأ أحمد.
مبني للمجهول لما لم يسمى فاعله.
يعني you can say مبني للمجهول, or you can say مبني لما لم يسمى فاعله. مبني يعني it is mentioned in a way in which the fa'il is not discussed. The mention of the fa'il is not made. Why instead of saying majhul? Majhul is يعني someone who is unknown, who people don't know. And it's not necessarily, it's not always the case that the doer is unknown. He's not necessarily majhul. He's just not mentioned for any reason. He's not being mentioned. مثلا the Sahaba say umirna. The Sahaba say umirna. We were commanded. Like everyone knows who commanded them, right? It's Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But for some reason, they are not mentioning, or they're not making the mention of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in their statement of in this statement of theirs. So it's not. That's why the more precise term for mabni al-majhul is mabni lima lam yusamma fa'iluhu. But because it is at times, more difficult to say it or remember it for people who are not familiar with Arabic. So that's why ma'lum and majhul are the relatively easier terms. Also, one of the reasons of using mabni lima lam yusamma fa'iluhu instead of mabni al-majhul is that what if this is out of adab with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, out of adab with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if there is a fi'l that has been mentioned and its fa'il is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the fa'il is not being mentioned, then it is not from the adab to say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is majhul, referring to mabni lil-majhul, the fa'il of this fi'l is majhul, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is known to everyone, and it does not befit us humans as the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to describe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as someone who is unknown. So out of adab, as well as because the reason why the fa'il is not mentioned can be more than one. It can be because he's really he is unknown, he's actually unknown, or it can be because you don't want to make a mention of him. It can be because you want to hide his name, or you just don't find it perhaps because you despise him, you don't know making mention of him. So there can be a number of reasons why you would not make a mention of the fa'il. طيب, وهو الذي
يحذف ذكر فاعله فيقام معموله مقام الفاعل ويسمى عندئذ نائب الفاعل. نحو ضرب عمرو وكتبت رسالة.
Now what happens is, يا إخوان, طبعا this we have already learned it once, but لا بأس if you go through it again. I know much of this information would not be new to all of you, but ما في إشكال, and this will be a revision for those who have already done this, and new information for those who are new بإذن الله تعالى. ما عليكم. So what happens is, يا إخوان, كتب محمد رسالة. Now in any jumla, the components that are marfu, like Muhammad, it is a must to have some component that is marfu. In any jumla, there must be a component that is marfu. These are called umda. Umda means like this is something that you cannot do without. So there must be something that is marfu, because that is the most important component of a jumla, and then come the mansubat and the majrurat. They are secondary when it comes to comparing them with the marfu'. So marfu' are the most important things to have, and they must be present in the jumla. Now what happens is, when we in kataba Muhammadun risalatan, Muhammad wrote a letter or a message, or let's say a treatise or whatever is called risala يعني in the academic sense. If we remove Muhammad, then we are left with a word that is mansoob and a fi'l. Now in this jumla there is no marfu', right? There must be a marfu'. There must be a marfu' in the jumla. Now what do they do? They say, okay, because we are not have, since we have لأننا حذفنا الفاعل, because we have omitted the fa'il and we are now out of marfu's, we must put something in place of the marfu'. So what do? They take the maf'ul bihi, which is risalatan, and they put it in the place of Muhammad, which was here, right? They put it in place of Muhammad. So they take it from here and they put it in place of Muhammad and make it marfu'. Now, if they make it marfu' and they leave the fi'l in its original state, then it would be as if the letter wrote itself, or letter wrote something. So now they want to attribute the fi'l to the object, but at the same time they don't want to confuse the listener. So here we need to make clear that even though a fi'l, a verb, is being attributed to the object, it's not the real doer. Rather, the doer is majhul. He is not known, or he has not been mentioned. So in order to make sure that they give this message, they have to change some of the harakas. They have to alter some of the harakas in the fi'l. So in order to denote that the fi'l is mabni lil majhul, it's in passive case, and that the one to whom the fi'l, the verb, is being attributed is not in reality the doer, rather he is the object. He's not the subject. In order to do that, they must alter the fi'l in some way. So what do? The madi, they put a dhamma at its first letter and a kasra at the second last letter. Why are we saying the second last letter? Because the same qaida, the same principle, will be repeated with madis which have more than 3 letters. There can be madi, like just like in the last class we I learned fa'ala, allama, and ta'allama, and ta'alama, and fa'ala, sharaka, qatala, etc. So their madis all have more than 3 letters. Even though their root letters are 3, but the fi'l in the madi state, it has additional letters to it to denote different meanings, right? Like we said in all of the alima and alama and ta'allama and allama and ta'alama and ista'lama, all of these have the same 3 root letters that are ayn, lam, and mim. But their madi state, these words in their madi state, they have each one has a different number or a separate number of letters. So alima has 3, but allama has 4, ayn, lam, mim. And ta'allama has 5, ta, ayn, lam, mim. And ta'alama also has 5, ta, ayn, alif, lam, mim. وهكذا. So if there are more than 3 letters in the madi, this qaida, this principle is going to stay in the same way that the second last letter in the madi state will be will have a kasra. That's why we always we don't say you put a kasra on the second letter. Rather we say you put a kasra on the second last letter, so that in order to unify the principle for all of the af'al. So this is how you convert a fi'l that is in active case to a fi'l that is converted into passive case. طيب. Now كتب رسالة, you are attributing this verb to something that is feminine, right? رسالة is feminine. So in order to attribute it to a fi'l, to something that is feminine, what must you add to the fi'l? ماضي. In the fi'l ماضي you must add something, right? مثلا ذهب محمد, لكن ما تستطيع تقول ذهب فاطمة. ماذا تضيف? What do you add to it? هاي شباب. What do we add here after ba? طيب نعم. Can someone remind me where did you guys lose me?
You said ذهب محمد ما تستطيع تقول فعلين.
طيب الحمد لله يعني much of it was يعني خلاص الحمد لله. طيب so you have كتب. Now in order to attribute this verb كتب to a feminine noun, you have to add to the verb what? What do you add to the verb? I think I've lost you guys again or something. تاء التأنيث. الحمد لله. تاء التأنيث. كتبت رسالة. كتبت رسالة. So the fi'l will be adjusted according to what is being attributed to. طيب. Now we know that the fa'il of كتب, or the fa'il of this act of writing was Muhammad. So and when we made the fi'l مبني للمجهول and attributed it to the risala, and we put risala in place of Muhammad and made it marfu', but we still do realize that risala is not the fa'il. So we cannot call it fa'il and we cannot call it maf'ul either. Why can't we call it maf'ul? Because maf'ul is always mansub. So we come up with a new name for risala. What is that new name that we give to risala, that new term? What is the new term that will be given to risala? Instead of fa'il and maf'ul, we will call it
نائب الفاعل.
نائب الفاعل. نائب الفاعل. نعم. نائب الفاعل. So this is the new term that is given to the risala. طيب likewise يا إخوان, we had an example here. ضرب زيد عمرا. Zayd hit Amr. Now we want to remove Zayd. We don't want to make a mention of him, and we want to attribute the fi'l to Amr and put Amr in place of Zayd. So we have to say ضرب عمرو. ضرب عمرو. طيب. Now what happened is we put a dhamma on the first letter, a kasra on the second last letter, and made the maf'ul bihi that was amran. لحظة. نعم. The maf'ul bihi that was amr, we made him marfu' and we put a dhamma on him. طيب. There is a little faida here. طبعا the dhamma here is not supposed to be put on waw. The dhamma يا إخوان is supposed to be put on the ra. The dhamma is supposed to be put on the ra. Here there's a mistake. I put the dhamma on the waw. I have one question. When we call him, when we pronounce this name as Amrun and Amran and Amrin, then why do we have to put a waw? Or why do we put a waw? Or why did the Arabs put a waw for Amr? Amrun.
To distinguish between Umar and Amr.
ممتاز. الله يفتح عليكم شيخ. To distinguish Amr from Umar. Now because they didn't have harakat in their time, the only way they could distinguish Amr from Umar was by putting an extra letter. So what did they do? They put an extra letter in Amr in order to make it stand out from Umar. But why isn't a waw needed in the nasb state? Why don't we need a waw in the nasb state? Why don't we write Amran as like this? Why do we write it like this? Isn't this going to confuse the reader? Yani, isn't this Amr, wouldn't this Amr be confused with the Umar as well? Hi, Akhwa. Who has the answer to this?
Because you cannot say Umaran.
Sorry, say it again, Ahmad. I couldn't hear you.
You cannot say Umaran.
Why can't we say Umaran? Mumtaz. Because it is ممنوع من الصرف. أحسنت. Because it's ممنوع من Umar is ممنوع من الصرف. Remember that any word, any ism on the wazn of فعل is ممنوع من الصرف. And hence, because Umar is ممنوع من الصرف, it would not have a fathatain. If it does not have a fathatain, we will not be putting any extra alif. And Umar in mansub state would be written like this, umara. And because we have the alif here, so we don't need the waw anymore. But in the rafa state, we need the waw, because if we don't put the waw, then it will be confused with Umar. And also in the jar state, we need a waw because it will be otherwise confused with Umar. طيب. مرة أخرى كيفية صياغة الفعل المبني المجهول للفعل الثلاثي. يلا يا أحمد، كيفية صياغة الفعل المبني المجهول.
كيفية صياغة الفعل المبني للمجهول للفعل الثلاثي. أما الماضي فإنه يضم أوله ويكسر ما قبل آخره، ويبقى آخره على الأصل مبنيا على الفتح.
يعني in the ماضي, just like we did with كتب, we put a dhamma at his first letter and on the second last letter a kasra. That's what it says. وأما
المضارع فإنه يضم أوله ويفتح ما قبل آخره، ويكون آخره حسب مقتضى الإعراب.
نعم. أما المضارع فإنه يضم أوله. Again, the same as the ماضي in the مضارع state as well. So for example, if we have the sentence as يضرب زيد عمرا and we wanted to remove زيد from the sentence, so we made the فعل مضارع which was يضرب, we made it into مبني للمجهول. We would put a dhamma at the first letter. طيب. طبعا عمرو would be made into a مرفوع now. Now, what about the second last letter? Unlike the فعل ماضي, this time around on the second last letter, the haraka will be a fatha instead of a kasra. So now you will say يضرب عمرو. يضرب عمرو. وهكذا تقول تكتب رسالة. So a dhamma on the first letter, just like the madi. However, on the second last letter in the mudari state, you are supposed to put a fatha instead of a kasra. طيب. This is for a fi'l thulathi. What is the meaning of fi'l thulathi, ya ikhwan? A fi'l thulathi, what does a thulathi fi'l mean? Three-letter fi'l. Three-letter fi'l means, yani, in the madi state, it's got three letters. Now, we're not talking about the root letters. It might have three root letters, but the madi state would have more than three letters. So, for example, we had ta'allama. Let's just give an example of ta'allama a while ago. Ta'allama, the root letters are three, ayn, lam, mim. But in the madi state, the fi'l has got five letters. Ta, ayn, two lams and a mim. Ta'allama. Now, when we say thulathi or ruba'i or khumasi or sudasi, we are referring to the number of letters there are in the madi state. The number of letters there are in the verb in its madi state. So by thulathi, we do not refer to the number of root letters. No. Root letters might be three. But how many letters are there in the madi state? And adding up the additional letters to the root letters, there might be three, four. There might be three, there might be four, there might be five, there might be even six letters in the madi state. So for example, you have for a fi'l ruba'i. Ruba'i means a fi'l having four letters in the madi state. You have allama, مثلا. Allama. Or you have, for example, sharaka. Now, what are the root letters of sharaka? Who can tell me the root letters of sharaka? The three root letters of sharaka. Sharaka means to participate in something or to participate with someone in doing something. Shin, Ra, Kaf. So, alhamdulillah, Akhuna Afaq was right away instantly able to identify the additional letter and sharaka. Okay, if you put it in Mizan Sarfi, in al-Mizan al-Sarfi, what is the wazn of sharaka? يا أخو نعم, if you put it in Mizan al-Sarfi, what will be the wazn of sharaka? I think my voice, I think you guys are unable to hear me. صحيح? Or is it فاعل? I'm sorry, I think my internet is the one I'm the one having problems with the internet. طيب شاركة. Okay. Moving on يا إخوان, مثلا you have أكرم. Now in أكرم يا إخوان, this is also, its ماضي contains how many letters? Four letters. So this is as يعني رباعي as well. Now what are the root letters of أكرم?
كاف را ميم.
كاف را ميم, ممتاز. And if you put it into the ميزان الصرفي, what will be the result?
أفعل.
أفعل, ممتاز جدا, بارك الله فيكم. طيب, now these are the رباعي. Now each of these three fi'ls or three verbs, they have 4 letters in their ماضي state. And their root letters are 3, but they have some additional letter. For علم, the additional letter was the lam itself. In فعل, you had an alif, and in أفعل, you have a hamza. طيب. Let's just mention a few خماسي as well. Now, for example, you have in خماسي تفعل, تعلم. يلا, خلونا نقول تعلم. تعلم. I know that you're not, many of us might not be familiar with these verb scales, but it's fine. This is just for يعني يعني we're learning it for the first time, and we're going to learn each one of these in detail in the upcoming دروس بإذن الله تعالى. This is just for مبني للمعلوم and مبني للمجهول. So don't worry that you don't know تعلم and أفعل, where is it coming from, or there are so many أوزان, how can I memorize them? ما عليكم, don't worry right now. This is just to learn how to make a فعل مبني للمجهول out of these. طيب تعلم, يلا تعلم, what are the root letters of تعلم?
عين لام and ميم.
عين لام and ميم. And what is the وزن of تعلم in الميزان الصرفي? If you weigh it on the ميزان الصرفي, what will it turn out to be?
تفعل.
تفعل, أحسن, تفعل. Okay, ممتاز. You have in الخماسي, what else do you have in الخماسي? You have something that is like انكسر. انكسر. طيب, انكسر. Now, what does انكسر mean? First of all, we mentioned this before once.
Broken or something?
To break, to something, and when it breaks itself, to break. نعم, أحسنت. انكسر. طيب, انكسر الزجاج, the glass broke مثلا. Or انكسر مثلا انكسر ماذا؟ انكسر الباب, the door broke, وهكذا. طيب, now انكسر, what are the 3 root letters of انكسر?
قاف سين
را.
را.
طيب, how many letters does it have in its ماضي? This is a separate question. No, it's not 4. There is 5. نعم, 5 letters. And if you put it in the ميزان الصرفي, in the صرفي scale to weigh it, what will its وزن turn out to be? إن فعل, أحسنتم, إن فعل, ممتاز. طيب, إن فعل. طيب, we have also in the خماسي something which is, لا خلاص ما أقول, I would not say it, I'll just give an example of it. مثلا احتضر. يلا, احتضر. Now, احتضر is يعني when someone is about to die and his يعني the death has arrived. احتضر, the death has arrived. So you say فلان احتضر يعني. That's what I remember of احتضر. المهم, what is the root? What are the root letters of احتضر?
حاء ضاد را.
حاء ضاد and را. And how many letters does it have in its ماضي? 5. Okay. طيب, ممتاز. طبعا we use it in the احتضر, we use it in the مبني للمجهول state when we're referring to someone يعني about to die, we would say يعني we would use it in its مبني للمجهول state. طيب, this is something that I would inshallah then, I'm not telling you how it would be pronounced in the مبني للمجهول state until I ask you the question inshallah after a while. طيب, احتضر, it has 5 letters in its ماضي state. The root letters are حاء ضاد را. If you put it in the mizan al-sarfi, if you put it in the sarfi scale, what will its wazn be? افتعل. أحسنتم. افتعل. افتعل. طيب. Let me give you another example of khumasi. We have تقاتل. تقاتل يعني two groups fought with each other مثلا, or two sides fought with each other. تقاتل. طيب تقاتل. In تقاتل, what are the root letters of تقاتل?
قاف تاء لا.
قاف تاء لام. ممتاز. And how many letters does it have in its ماضي?
5.
5 letters it has in its ماضي. ممتاز. What if you put it in the ميزان الصرفي, what will its وزن be?
تفاعل.
تفاعل. ممتاز. ممتاز جدا. طيب تفاعل. الله يفتح عليكم جميعا. And finally we have something like, for example, إحمر. إحمر, to become red. يعني his let's say إحمر وجهه, his face turned red. إحمر, his face turned red. طيب, what are the root letters in إحمر? What are the root letters in إحمر?
حاميم را.
Ha, mim, and ra. And how many letters does it have in its ماضي?
5.
5. Okay, if you put it in the ميزان الصرفي, what will the وزن be?
افعل.
إفعل. ممتاز. So what did brother Afaq do? He just replaced the ha, mim, ra with fa, ain, and lam. So just like إحمر, إفعل. These are the awzan that have 5 letters in their madi, and their root letters are 3. So from verbs that have 3 root letters, we derived verbs that have 5 letters in the madi state. Now we have, I'm just mentioning these right now so that we could discuss the mabni al-majhul of each, even though I have said at the end of the slide, like وَأَمَّا إِذَا كَانَ الْفِعْلُ رُبَاعِيًّا وَخُمَاسِيًّا وَسُدَاسِيًّا. So we will learn how to form it later on, but let's just do it as a first time for now, right now, and then inshallah once we study each one of these awzan in detail, it will be easier for us to remember this information or learn it at that time, because that will be the second time we'll be doing it. طيب أعلم شارك فعل. Now we have the sudasi ones. Sudasi means 3-letter verbs with a 3-letter root having 6 letters in their madi state. Having 6 letters in their madi state. طيب, what do we have? We have, for example, استخرج, to take out something. To take out something. طيب, what are the root letters of استخرج? What are the root letters of استخرج? خارجيم. How many letters does it have in its madi state? 6 letters. طيب. And what if you put it in the mizan sarfi, in the scale of sarf, to weigh it, what will its weight, its wazn turn out to be? استفعل. استفعل. أحسنتم. استفعل. So what did the sister do? She just replaced the kha, ra, and jim with fa, ain, and lam. طيب, we have something, it's a little bit of a difficult يعني وزن. طيب, ما في إشكال. طيب, let's take it as a challenge. يلا. إعشوشبة. إعشوشبة يعني when the إعشوشبت الأرض, when the land has grown grass on it. طيب, عشب on it. So إعشوشبت الأرض إذا كثر نبات وجه الأرض. If the يعني if lots of grass has grown on the land, you say إعشوشبت الأرض. So you have a فعل here, إعشوشبة. إعشوشبة. طيب, who can guess the root letters of إعشوشبة? This is a little difficult. عين شين and ba. شين and ba. عين شين and ba. أحسنتم. طيب. Now, how many letters does it have in its Madi state? Six letters. And why is Ain Shin Ba the root letters? How did the sister know? Perhaps maybe because she has studied it previously, or because it has been derived from Ushb. And Ushb is grass, right? Or anything that grows on the earth. So Ushb is if it is being derived from Ushb, then its root letters must be Ain, Shin, and Ba. طيب. If you put it in the Mizan al-Sarfi, in al-Mizan al-Sarfi, what will its wazn be? How much would it weigh? Now imagine al-Mizan al-Sarfi as a weighing scale, and you put the fi'l into it, and how much does it would it wazn, or what would its wazn turn out to be? Shaba. Ain, Sheen, Ba. Replace the Ain with a Fa, and the two sheens with an Ain, and the Ba with a Lam. اسفعوا لا ما تجي هذا. افعوا على. أحسنتم. افعوا على. افعوا على. افعوا على. So all we did was just replace the root letters with Fa, Ain, and Lam. طيب. And now finally we have another one that is okay, let's just keep it to this, because the others are, even the I'sha Shaba itself does not have a mabni lil majhul that we would be deriving from it, and so it doesn't, even in kasara it's always lazim, so it does not have mabni lil majhul as far as I know, but there might be some cases in which it might have a mabni lil majhul. For example, what do we have in kasara? I can't think of any case in which I can put in kasara or in fa'ala as mabni lil majhul. Why is that the case? It's because it's always for mutawa'a, like, you know. طيب. Okay, ما في إشكال. لكن نكتفي بهذا for now. Okay. Now, we have علم, whose wazn is فعل. We have شارك, whose wazn is فاعل. أكرم, whose wazn is أفعل. تعلم, تفاعل. انكسر, انفعل. احتضر, افتعل. تقاتل, تفاعل. احمر, افعل. استخرج, استفعل. اعشوشب, افعوعل. Now, يا إخوان, let's just apply the law of that is how to the principle of deriving fi'l mabni lil majhul from a madi. We said that we are supposed to put a dhamma on the first letter and a kasra on the second last letter. So if allama, if that's the fi'l we have on our hands, what will be its mabni lil majhul form? What will be the mabni lil majhul form of allama? Put a dhamma on the first letter and a kasra on the second last letter.
علم.
علم. أحسنت. علم. علم. ممتاز جدا. طيب. نأتي الآن إلى شارك. Now this is a little challenging. شارك. A dhamma on the first letter and a kasra on the second letter. You put a dhamma on the first letter and you get in trouble with the alif. Now you will need to improvise. So let me just I'll let you try first, and then inshallah we'll tell you the correct one if you get it wrong. So what will be the fi'l mabni lil majhul of sharaka? This is a madi state. It's in the madi state. Sharaka. He participated.
شورك.
شورك أحسنت خطير يا طلحة ما شاء الله شورك نعم قاتل قوتل قوتل أحسنت ممتاز شورك ممتاز بارك الله فيكم. Now what happened was you naturally converted this alif into a waw because you were compelled to do so because of the dhamma that the sheen has. The dhamma cannot it's not compatible with the alif, so you have to convert the alif into waw. طيب ممتاز. Now this one is an easy one. أكرم what will be the مبني للمجهول form of أكرم؟
أكرم.
أكرم سهل الحمد لله. أكرم the dhamma does not seem to appear on the here يعني in the Zoom text box because it's very poor, but ما في إشكال. طيب moving on. تعلم. Now he learned, and if I want to say that this book was learned, and people learned this book or people learned the science of Sarf, so we will say, how will we say that the science of Sarf was learned? تعلم. How to convert تعلم into مبني للمجهول? Now this is challenging again. This is challenging. Sister says تعلم. تعلم. Okay, this would have been, and this according to that principle, this is the way it should have been. But if you make it تعلم, you might confuse it with the مضارع of علم. Because مثلا if you say for a second person, you say علمت تعلم وأنت يعني لن تعلم. So it might be confused with the مضارع of the second person that is for فعل. So what did they do? Instead of saying تعلم, they also put a ضمة on the عين. And this is why this is an exception to the rule, or sort of an exception to the rule. So they made it, instead of making it تعلم, they said تعلم. They said تعلم instead of تعلم. According to the principle, it should have been تعلم, but تعلم would be confused with something else. So they had to put تعلم. طيب. I'm not sure so far if انكسر would have a مبني للمجهول, but let's just say let's first do افتعل and then we'll move on to if انكسر. What is the like we have the word we have here is احتضر. Now احتضر, when it is used for someone who is about to die, so we will say we will use احتضر in its مبني للمجهول state. So we would once you tell me what's its مبني للمجهول form, I will then inshallah make the sentence for you. So how would you convert احتضر into the مبني للمجهول state? Now you have to refer to your natural understanding of this principle. How would you apply it to this word here? Because you would notice that you should know that this alif is hamzat al-wasl, and it's here for it's because we need it right now. We need it, and this might not be considered the first letter of the fi'l. And in a sense that if there is a word before ihtadara, then we wouldn't need this alif. So you move on to the second letter, and the second letter has a sukun. So you cannot put a dhamma on it. You have to let it remain sakin. So you start the process from the third letter. So in this case, you will have to start the process from the third letter. So when you start the process from the third letter, what do? You put a dhamma on the ta, right? And the second last letter is the dad. What haraka should we put on the dad? The kasra. The kasra. See, we are not going to do away with the alif. We're not going to do away with the hamzat al-wasl, because hamzat al-wasl we still need it. Why do we need it? We need it because of the ha. But it's not considered part of the fi'l, so that we would give it particular harakas for now. we cannot start giving harakas with the alif. If you want to start giving harakas, you have to start with the original letters of the fi'l that remain with it in all states, and that is ha, ta, dad, and ra. And because ha has a sukoon, we cannot give it a haraka. We have to start with ta. So we gave ta a dhamma. We gave the second last letter, which is the dad, a kasra, and now we're going to give the طبعا the ra remains a maftuh. Now looking at this, what haraka will the alif have? It's hamzatul wasl. So what haraka will it have? Hamzatul wasl. You have to look at the second letter after hamzatul wasl in order to determine the haraka on hamzatul wasl. So what? Dhamma. Uhtudira. Uhtudira. Zaydun. Yani Zayd is about to die. يعني حضره الموت. احتضر حضره الموت أو احتضره الموت. يعني الموت has arrived to him. So he has احتضر زيد, that he is about to die. طيب ممتاز جدا so far. Another challenging one, تقاتل. طيب, how will you say, how will you make the مبني المجهول of تقاتل? This is a little challenging one. Again, it's similar to تعلم in the sense that the تقاتل ممتاز. تقاتل, you could يعني looking at that first principle that we had for the فعل ثلاثي, this would have been تقاتل. But if you make it تقاتل, you would confuse it with the فاعل for قاتل يقاتل. You would confuse it with تقاتل, that is the فاعل for the second person. So just like تعلم, تقاتل also has يعني, if nuance to it, it has some fine detail to it, and that is why you have to make it into تقوتل. So dhamma and another dhamma, and طبعا with the dhamma the alif is not compatible, it converts into a waw. تقوتل. طيب, as for ihmarra, ihmarra is a lazim, it's always intransitive. I don't know if it would ever, if there is any example in Arabic language of it being used as mabni al-majhul, because it already serves the purpose of a mabni al-majhul. But let's just, for the sake of practice, let's just say if it does have a mabni al-majhul, how would it be of ihmarra? Hi Shabab. The alif, this is Hamzat al-Wasl. You cannot touch it for now. Ha has a sukoon. You cannot touch it. You start with the mim. Uhmurra. It would have been, if there was, it would have been uhmurra. طيب, what about the second last letter? The second last letter was there along with the with the ra mushad. It was a part of the ra mushadda, then it had a sukoon, so we didn't really annoy it or disturb it. We let it remain the way it was. Just like for example in the fi'l thulathi, if you have ya ikhwan مثلا madda or yamuddu مثلا. Madda means to extend your hand. مثلا madda yadahu, to extend your hand. If you want to make it into fi'l mabni lil-majhul, you would only say mudda. You would not say mudida. Rather, you would say mudda, and you would remain, or you would leave the second last letter the way it was, in the state of shadda with having a sukoon, because it has been merged into the other dal, because it has been merged into the other dal. So you just say mudda. So likewise, uhmurra مثلا. طيب. نأتي هنا إلى استخرج. يلا, this one is also a challenging one. استخرج. يلا. Alif can't be touched because it's Hamzat al-Wasl. Sin has a sukoon, so you cannot touch it. Start with the ta.
استخرج.
أحسنت, الله يفتح عليك. استخرج. we haven't yet determined, يعني we don't determine the حركة of the همزة الوصل before we derive the فعل. Now we look at the همزة الوصل and we say the second letter, we see the second letter after همزة الوصل is a ضمة. So now we put a ضمة on همزة الوصل. استخرج. As for عشوشبة, it doesn't have a فعل مبني للمجهول because it's always لازم. استخرج. Why there's a كسرة on را? Because in فعل ماضي you always have a كسرة on the second last letter in مبني للمجهول state. كسر، علم، تعلم، احتضر، تقوتل، احمر طبعا this is an exception. استخرج وهكذا. شوشبة if it had a مبني للمجهول it would have been أعشوشبة. أعشوشبة. So we would have put a dhamma on the sheen and a kasra on the second last sheen, the second last letter. أعشوشبة. We would have made it into أعشوشبة. طيب, and likewise in kasra we had left it out. In kasra, let's just say it has a مثلا you want to use it in a particular context. You said انكسر الزجاج مثلا في الغرفة. So انكسر الزجاج في الغرفة مثلا. Can you say it انكسر في الغرفة? You can say like something got broken or in the غرفة. I don't know if you can say it or not. المهم, let's just for the sake of practice, if انكسر does have an فعل ماضي مبني للمجهول, then how would it be? You cannot touch the همزة الوصل, you cannot touch the noon. You start with the kaf. هاي شباب. It's similar to احتضر.
انكسر.
It would be انكسر. أحسنتم. انكسر. طيب, ممتاز جدا جدا. طيب يا إخوان, now we have a set of أفعال here. علم، علم. طيب, now we have for each of these أفعال we have a مضارع as well. And we could apply the principle for مضارع on its مضارع. So for example يا إخوان, here if we have for علم, the مضارع, who can tell me the مضارع في علم? طبعا you have those. This is a question for those who have already learned it before once. What is the مضارع في علم? يعلم. نعم. For those doing it first time, don't worry, ما في إشكال. طيب, what is the مضارع of شارك? يا شباب. يشارك. أحسنتم. What is the مضارع of أكرم?
يكرم.
What is the مضارع of تعلم?
يتعلم.
These أوزان طبعا they're supposed to be memorized. يعني for those who are doing يعني first time, oh, how would I know this? It's so difficult. لا, it's not difficult. It's just يعني when you study them you will automatically بإذن الله تعالى memorize them. ما عليكم. طيب, انكسر. What is the مضارع في انكسر? ينكسر. الله يحفظكم. طيب, what is the مضارع of احتضر? يحتضر. أحسنتم يا شيخ. What is the مضارع of تقاتل? يتقاتل. طيب, and what is the مضارع of احمر? يحمر. نعم, يحمر. طبعا we can leave out يحمر because it doesn't have a مبني للمجهول, but just alhamdulillah, mashallah, students already know the mudari. This can be a practice of deriving the mudari. طيب استخرج, what is the mudari of استخرج? What is the mudari of استخرج?
يستخرج.
يستخرج. أحسنتم جميعا, بارك الله فيكم. طيب, now we have the principle for the mudari. Now يعلم, he is teaching. You want to say he is being taught. So you apply the principle of مبني للمجهول for the mudari. You put a dhamma on the first letter and a fatha on the second last letter. Yalla. So what will be the result of يعلم? What will be the مبني للمجهول form of يعلم? نعم. What will
يعلم.
يعلم. يعلم. ممتاز. يعلم. طيب. So the rest remains the same. يشارك. What will be the مبني للمجهول form of يشارك?
يشارك.
يشارك. ممتاز. يكرم. What will be the مبني للمجهول form of يكرم?
يكرم.
يكرم. أحسنتم. يكرم. يتعلم. This is not difficult, but it's fine, easy. Now, what will be the مبني للمجهول form of يتعلم? نعم, it's easy.
يتعلم.
يتعلم. فمثلا يتعلم علم الصرف. يتعلم, the ilm of sarf is being learnt. يتعلم علم الصرف. ينكسر, let's say if it has مبني للمجهول, what will be the صيغة or form or pattern of ينكسر in مبني للمجهول state?
ينكسر.
ينكسر. أحسنتم, بارك الله فيكم. ينكسر. يحتضر. What will be the مبني للمجهول of يحتضر?
يحتضر.
يحتضر. يحتضر. ممتاز, الله يفتح عليكم. يتقاتل. What will be the مبني للمجهول of يتقاتل?
يتقاتل.
لا, يتقاتل خطأ. مرة أخرى. يتقاتل. يعني brother Afaq, you said you made the second last letter مكسور. It should have been مفتوح. يتقاتل. يتقاتل. يحمر. What will be the يتقاتل؟ أحسنتم. يحمر. What will be the مبني للمجهول state of يحمر if it had one?
يحمر.
يحمر. أحسنتم. يحمر, بارك الله فيكم جميعا. And يستخرج, what will be the مبني للمجهول state of يستخرج or form of يستخرج?
يستخرج.
يستخرج. إذن the principle remains intact for most of the ماضي and مضارع, except for all the أفعال except for the ماضي of تعلم and انكسر and احتضر and تقاتل. The principle remains intact for most of the أفعال except when it comes to if انفعل and افتعل and تفعل and تفاعل. That's where you put an additional dhamma. Instead of saying تعلم, you say تعلم. Instead of saying تقاتل, you say تقوتل. And that's the only place where we are having some trouble. As for sharaka, it becomes shurika. That, alhamdulillah, you were able to judge it يعني naturally it came naturally to you, so this isn't difficult. Likewise, شارك, that's it. Yeah, نعم, that's it. So شارك يشارك isn't that much of a problem. The only problem we had was with تعلم and تقوتل. So we had to put an extra dhamma so that it does not resemble one of its sisters from فاعل or فعل. And in فعل and احتضر, we had to be careful by not starting to apply the qaida from the Hamzat al-Wasl, because it doesn't actually belong to the fi'l. Hamzat al-Wasl is there for some need, for a particular job that it does. And the second letter, we had to leave it as it is, and we had to start with the first mutaharrik letter. That's why we were having some problems with ihtadara and fa'ala. So this is how the mabni al-majhul of all of these abwab are derived and formed. Now, when we, inshallah, we'll be studying each of these abwab in detail with their meanings and their usages in the Arabic language, then I will ask you this question. Okay, we are studying this bab. What is the mabni al-majhul of this? What is the mabni al-ma'lum of this and this fi'l? We can give you like a number of examples of we can say istakhraja, we can say ista'lama, we can say istafsara. We can give you a number of examples, and then you will have to take out the mabni al-majhul of those examples. But for now, ya ikhwan, subhanallah, I had promised a homework, I think, in the last class, and I forgot to give it to you, I guess. Anyways, inshallah, I will try my best, inshallah, after this dars, that I collect some of the af'al from each of these awzan and ask you to just derive the mabni al-majhul form for these af'al, for the madi and for the mudari', just for practice, 2 each. So this will be an interesting exercise for you بإذن الله تعالى. نكتفي بهذا القدر اليوم، وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك، نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت، نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.